Hi, I'm Russ Camarda, an independent filmmaker and actor in New York, and in between the chances I get to do my creative projects, I love to sit down and talk with other artists to see how it is they do what they do, how they take art and use their craft to reveal truth to an audience. So in this series of conversations, you'll meet some people you may recognize, some people you won't recognize, but they're all independent artists, and we'll get in depth in a long-form conversation to see how it is they do what they do. Welcome to Art Craft Truth. This time on Art Craft Truth, actor-writer John Grady. From being trained in the professional ballet, to the Blue Man Group off-Broadway, to countless guest spots on television and film, ultimately to writing and performing his own one-man shows. There's so much to cover with John Grady. I probably need at least 2 more episodes, but this one will have to suffice as a start. A fascinating, multi-talented artist. I hope you enjoy it. John Grady. Hey, there he is.
Hi.
Hey, what's up, man?
How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. You can hear me okay?
I can hear you good. You can hear me as well?
I can, yeah.
Oh, good. I like people who have
I'm going to set up a little camera here.
actual
I'm going to send you another sexy angle.
All right, I dig it.
But if you wanted to like cut away to that sexy angle,
I will
you
take it
could.
because I have plenty of sexy angles of me here. So I got
Oh,
two,
yeah,
I got
right?
2 other
Got it.
sexy angles. Very cool.
This isn't my place, but I'm just house sitting right now, so it's got
Is that what
nice
they're
little...
Is that what they're calling it now? House sitting? It used to be called breaking and entering.
That's what you're It's amazing I've gotten away with it for this long. This is John Grady's trial by fire. 3, 2, 1. There we go.
Sweet.
Yeah, you could line that up. I don't know. I think that's how they do it. I'm not quite sure.
Well,
I've seen people do that, but
this is cool, man. Well, thank you so much, first of all, for doing this. You come courtesy of our mutual friend, Kate Van Devender, who's been super at introducing me to all you great people.
Oh, man.
And I got you. You're out in L.A. right now, right? Is that where we're
Currently in Los Angeles, yeah.
in someone else's house?
In somebody else's house. Hey, people, don't put the keys under the mat.
That's right.
I will find my way in.
Well, listen, John, because I don't know you, I did just a peripheral kind of, get to know you on your website and stuff like that.
Yeah.
We got a lot to talk about, brother. I mean, you are
Let's do it.
you are an amazing character with a lot of different stuff under your belt, and I just want to just dive right in. And as you know, the sort of gist of what I'm trying to do here always is, we go through all the accomplishments in the career and that stuff, but I want to know how you do what you do. So, you do a lot of different things. So
because we could just post a resume for people.
Yeah, exactly.
Put
That's right, sure. And then in 1985, he did this. All right.
Yeah.
So first,
but that's all important too. Exactly. That's very important too. Like the journey of just getting to each of those, deciding, or maybe not deciding, but just following your heart and your gut.
Sure, and it feeds into everything you do and how you do what you do. So we're going to weave back and forth through all kinds of stuff. And I'll get to know you, and everybody will get to know you, and really see how you do your craft. And along the way, if you got questions and thoughts you want to throw my way, it's a conversation. It's not an interview. So whatever you want to do there, we'll do that. So first of all, where are you from originally?
Born and raised Northern California, San Jose, Saratoga to be more exact,
okay.
but the South Bay there.
The Bay Area. All right. I got 2 brothers who lived out in the Bay Area for many years. It's a beautiful area. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
So you've been an actor, and you're also a writer, and you're a solo performer and a stage performer, film and television performer. When you were a kid, was this an aspiration of yours, something you always wanted to do? Or first of all, John Grady, you're Irish?
Irish.
So big family?
Still. Yeah, I'm number 8 of the 9.
All you guys, man. 8 of 9, 9 of 10.
You basically raised by wolves.
Exactly. You have to fight for your.
Yeah. No, the dinner table was always, you wait for a fight to break out, and then while that fight is breaking out, you reach in and grab your thing, and you just keep running away from you.
So as a kid, is this something you're thinking of? Is this a dream of yours as a kid?
That's all we have time for today.
Wow, that was the most dead I've had on here.
Well, there's a couple. I mean, I guess as a kid, you're seeing people in film and television, and we were always thrust in, not in front of the television, but definitely a big part of our childhood was being sent to the movie theaters.
Okay, yeah, to babysit.
Can we just get them out of the house? Just I do have this very vivid memory of going into the Los Gatos cinema. I think it was probably 25 or 50 cents for a movie, and just being dropped off there and being there sort of all day, and then at the end of the day,
time out. Wait a minute. Is this like 1930? How old are you, for God's
feels
sake?
like this
25 cents were there all day.
Yeah, I think it was.
Did they play the newsreels beforehand, or what was that?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, well, come on, kids. Make sure you gather up all your plastics and your rubbers and your metals and. Yeah, we go to the Los Gatos cinema, and my memory was just sitting there all day watching movies, and at the end of the day, coming out and it being raining. That's all I can remember. I just remember the station wagon pulling up,
wow,
raining, and jumping back in the car.
So, what was the kinds of stuff that was babysitting you at the time? What were these movies?
These were all Disney films.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah.
Okay. All right. So they drop you off. You watch a full day of Disney and go home. And did you want to be up on the screen? Did you want to be up on the stage? What was the deal?
Well, I didn't. I guess I didn't know anyone that was doing it. Right. So it didn't seem like
right.
It didn't seem like it was a viable career, or I didn't even know what a career was. But I did used to have dreams of being in the cast of Star Trek. I can remember that vividly from like second grade. I can remember like I knew I was in a uniform, and I knew it wasn't. I knew that it was on. I knew that I was being filmed.
Right.
That's what I knew. I knew that it wasn't like, oh, I'm in that world. Right. I knew that I was part of that.
Wait, time out. So you were actually on Star Trek? Is that what you're saying?
That's what it felt like, yes.
Okay, all right, good to know, because that clears a lot of things up for me.
Yeah.
So when does it finally enter your consciousness as an actual viable thing? How old are you when you start to regulate?
Yeah, not till high school, where
really? Okay.
A couple of gal pals say, you should try out for the musical. And you're like, okay, yeah, I'll do that. I mean, I remember giving up on the idea of being a soccer player professionally, and and then I was like, well, how about architecture? And I started getting involved in architecture and studying that design, and
wow.
And then I was like, oh, that seems like a lot of math. So sure, that's my thing right now.
Then the girls get involved in that, and you know where they're going to be. And so
and you're like, what? Oh, people, they laugh at you when you're up here? Oh, I like that.
Right.
A little applause at the end. Oh, okay. More of this, please.
Sweet. So I also saw that you're trained in ballet, and
so that came very late. That came in. So now I'm at college. I'm at University of California, Irvine.
Okay.
And all the theater majors there, you have to take movement as part of your requirements.
Sure.
Yeah. And I remember I did have some exposure to dance. I had two older brothers that were involved in dance, a small like contemporary company that was attached with the junior college, and up in the Bay Area. So I got a chance to see them dance and perform, and I really thought I thought they were beautiful. I thought they looked
right.
strong and manly, and so that was always in the back of my head. That wasn't something that I thought I would do, but I loved that image of. I love seeing them in that
right.
venue.
So dance is one thing. Ballet, is a whole other discipline. I mean, that's an intense.
I do remember passing by a ballet class when I was at university, and I thought, oh, I mean, look at that. They have to do the same thing every day, again and again and again, and they're being told that they're not doing it correct. I'm like, oh, that fits right in with my Catholic upbringing. you will learn to do this better. Okay, please, more of that, please.
So something about the discipline you like about.
Yeah, exactly. And my father was a fighter pilot in the Navy, so I figured this was the only way I was going to get some sort of military school discipline.
Wow.
My version of that. So I did took 2 years of ballet, and I think for anyone with a little bit of sense of space, time and rhythm and maybe a sense of line and a little stick-to-itedness, maybe a little obsession to be better, to better yourself all the time. Um, I think dance it made sense. That it was a good fit.
Right.
So at the end of that, so I've now graduated.
Right. Well, let me ask you this question, because I watched
go.
I watched a little bit of your of one of the excerpts of one of your one man show things,
Okay.
where you talk about your youth doing your foray into gymnastics. Is that, first of all?
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, right. Of course, junior high school.
Right.
Yes.
Junior high school. Does that inform some of the stuff? Are you flashing back to the guy slapping your thighs and making you do backflips when you're doing ballet? Is there a correlation between those disciplines, or no?
Yeah, I do. You're right. I do like that. I do remember my dad saying, I mean, you're not going to be a gymnast. And what he meant by that is that he's like, that's not your body type. You're not.
Okay.
You're going to grow up to be a big, long, stringy green bean.
Right.
So that was his way of being supportive.
He was being practical.
he saw the future. He's like, right. Yeah, no, that's not you. You're not gonna be doing right. So yeah, there was that element of learning those tricks, those gymnastic, those sort of flips and tumbles and things. Fun, super fun.
Right. And what do you take away from, before we move on to getting you out there as a performer, as an actor, and all that stuff? What do you take away from that discipline, from the techniques you're being taught as a dancer? It's a whole other. People don't understand about these different disciplines in art. Is yes, there's a common thread of truth and performance and all that stuff, but they're very specific crafts. So what do you take away from the physicalness and the discipline of learning something like ballet? To me, that's going to inform a lot of where we go from here.
Yeah. I think I do enjoy that sort of structure.
Structure. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like being given a routine. And I don't think that came in grade school during the gymnastics, but I think it was a precursor to that. And also, I kind of like being the only guy that was in there. Smart. I mean, I like to feel. Oh, I think we all like to. I think you like to find a place where you can feel special.
Okay.
Unique. You have to feel unique.
Okay, interesting.
One does. I do.
I think we all do, and particularly if you're the only male surrounded by all the females, it's not a bad thing for most.
It's not a bad thing. No, it's not a bad thing. It was easier.
If you're a straight male.
There was. I mean, because in grade school, there's a lot of pissing contests going on. It's a lot of a lot of challenges. Being picked on and being, whether you're in a gymnastics class or not. It's just it's just men being men, boys being boys.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think you and I are probably close to the same age. So there's
32. Let's do it.
Yeah, exactly. You got it. There's a different way of looking at, not that bullying is great or anything, and obviously it leads to awful things, but we grew up in a sort of a different idea of how to deal with that as males, that led to different outcomes in how we think about things, I think. And I don't know that it's all bad. I think there is some character to having to go through some gauntlets and things as a young man. I think we all do.
Yeah.
And I think in every culture there's that sort of gauntlet that the young male has to process through, and I think that's part of it.
I feel like my nephews don't go through that at all.
How old are they?
They're all out of high school, and then out of high school, and then they're in college. I'm like,
yeah.
They never really went through that, is my understanding.
Yeah, no, it's a different thing, and I think there's some value to it that, although it can be difficult, is lost, I think, on some of the newer folks.
It might be an impetus for drive.
Sure.
To better, to show you. Oh, I'm going to show you. Oh, I'm going to fucking. I'm going to leap over that thing. You're going to see it. Yeah.
Right. There is part of that. All right. Yeah. So when does acting enter this as where you think, I want to be another character. I want to get in a show. Is that part of college too? Or you're in the theater program kind of a thing?
Yeah. I get myself in the theater program. at university, and still not. I'm trying to remember, because I'm 1,000 years old now. I'm trying to remember if I knew then that's what I wanted to do, or if it was a thing that I could do. I mean, I definitely started meeting more people. You start meeting your people.
Sure.
You're like, oh, maybe, maybe, let's just say being an architect. Oh, maybe those are not my people. Or even wanting maybe the desire to be a professional soccer player. Like, oh, maybe, those aren't my people.
Is that what
either.
you were going to school for? Were you going to be an architect? Was that the idea, or did
there was a bit? Yeah, there's
Okay.
a bit. That's what my parents thought. They're not alive anymore, so it doesn't matter. So I don't know why I'm whispering. Yeah, there was definitely a part of like, yeah, I will go there not to appease them, but also like, oh, that seems like a thing. That is something that I was interested in.
Right.
I do like space and carving and designing in space.
Okay. Yeah, and that combined with your love of structure and discipline was a. It's just the math part kind of gets in the way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What's the first thing that happens where you're doing it? You're in a show.
See, I can't even remember what was the first. Well, I'm starting to take the one or two acting classes every quarter semester, getting to see the people and
what kind of stuff are they teaching you? Acting wise, are they giving you just sort of basic scene study stuff? Are they giving
basic scene study stuff, the basic acting 101,
right.
Warming up your body,
right.
doing your
they're not giving
silly
you
voice
specific methods or things like that yet. They're just kind of giving you basic.
They were based in Stanislavski.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
But none of that. I couldn't tell you one of them. I'd be like, no, that is actually the method that I stick. If someone pointed out to me, you're like, oh, I'd be like, oh, I am? Fantastic. I don't.
Right.
I wouldn't. I just kept doing it.
Interesting. So you're not at a certain point, you're not going, well, all right, here's my path. This is what I'm going to do. You're just doing it. You're just performing.
Doing it. I mean, there's definitely, I do remember coming home for a summer and sitting with my dad on the couch, and we were watching. Do you remember the old PBS, like not Masterpiece Theater, but they were, but they would show play. They had plays like Matthew Broderick in Master Harold.
Okay, all right.
Master Harold and the Boys, and the other was I remember seeing Kevin Bacon in Lemon Sky.
Okay.
And there's a scene in it where he has this. Building all this tension about like what's happening with their son. Why isn't he falling in love with this woman? Kira Cedric, actually. He marries, right? He ends up married, right? Funny enough. But the father finding out that he's gay, and that it was and so the mother can't handle it, and the father can't deal with it, and there's just a huge blowout scene, at the end of the play where they're just just exploding. And I turned to my dad and I was like, that's what I want to do.
Wow. What did Dad say? Like, that's not your body type.
Hey, it's not your body type. You don't look anything like Kevin Bacon. You're not tall and lanky. Right. Oh wait, you are exactly Kevin Bacon.
That's right. Wow. So all right. So it's that inspiration to see that live performance.
Yeah.
That other thing.
And then I felt like I was that. Then I felt like I was seeing myself. Up there in these younger men that were doing these roles.
How old were you at this point?
So that's 20, 21, 22. Yeah.
For most actors, that's pretty late to kind of come upon the inspiration for that. Very interesting.
Yeah.
So
I'm really going to break out when I'm 80. It's going to be amazing.
Well,
can't wait.
That's awesome. Well, I'll be right behind you. So So then what do you do with it? With that? Then how do you take that and move forward with it? What do you do with that inspiration?
By sending out headshots and resumes to some agencies up in Los Angeles, because then the talk of your senior year is like, hey, when everyone's going to move to LA, you're going to do the actor thing up in LA.
Right.
And you're like, yeah, you got to be prepared for that, right? You got to. No one. They don't show you how to do it. They don't teach. That's nothing. None of that. They don't teach you any of that. Right. Which they really should. Yeah. That's such a big part of it. And so before that, before moving up there, or before the idea of moving up there, graduating and moving up there. I did have some sort of agent by just sending out random headshots and resumes, where there was someone who said, "Hey, we like your look. We'll send you out for some things."
Okay.
It never felt. It never felt like it was. It never felt real. I never knew. Never knew what the. Everything seems really creepy and seedy. Every casting office I went into a room, every audition, I was like, "What is this? Who are they?" Everything just seemed.
Right.
Everything seemed like, "Is this porno?" I don't think it is. All right, but everything just it seemed. I think what that feeling was it wasn't the right choice at the time.
Okay.
In the meantime, there's a ballet company from Canada comes down to perform in Orange County, the National Ballet of Canada. And a friend of mine who I was taking some ballet classes with at a studio, as one might do in these, out in the suburbs, this little small mom and pop studio. And he says, "Hey, I'm working as a super in this show. That's like being an extra."
Okay.
And in the dance world, you can be you'll be the spear holder.
Okay. All right.
While if they're doing a classical ballet, there's definitely some spear holders that they hire locally if they're on tour, right? And then the rest of the company dances. So my friend said, "Hey, I'm going out. I met these two girls that are in the company, and we're going out. So you want to come join us?" And I was like, "Sure, that sounds great." So I meet these women, and I start asking them about the training and where they had trained, and one said, "Oh, I graduated from the National Ballet School. It's kind of attached with the company." And I was like, "Oh, it's in Toronto?" She's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Oh, how do I get into that school?" She's like, "Well, they have like a program there." I was like, "Okay." So I wrote the artistic directors of the company. I said, "Hey, I would be interested in. Would you?" Oh, I was doing a performance at the university. I said, "Hey, would you be interested in coming to see me perform?" God, would you like to be interested in come see me perform at this college show? They're like, we're kind of busy, but that's reading into the message. But they wrote back. This is when we wrote letters.
Right.
And they wrote back and said, "Thank you so much for the invite. If you'd be interested in continuing your training, we can't come to your show, but there is a school up here, and they do have a program for students who have graduated from college or finished their schooling and just want to go there and train. It's the National Ballet School. It's a boarding school for kids grades 4 through 12, but they have this other program attached to the school where students can just go there and train. Well, the other students they're doing their math, science,
right,
architecture, and gymnastics. The rest of us just go there and we just train all day." And I was like, "I need to find out if I can do this." And every day that I was there, all I did was think about getting back to LA. I felt like I had made an awful mistake.
Wow, I
made a huge mistake. The only thing I'm getting out of this right now is that I actually get to tell my kids someday that I actually had to walk through snow uphill to get to school. So ballet school, mind you, but I did it.
Wow.
Yeah, and these kids, they are dedicated.
Right.
They are in it
Right.
to win it for life. And that school is cranking out little Barishnikovs and little Sylvie Gims. I'm like, the level is just so high. The senior boys class.
So let me stop you here. Let me ask you this question. What is your thought process as a 20-something-year-old college graduate now going to another city were you planning on becoming a member of this company? What was your goal here? You just wanted to do what?
Yeah, I thought maybe that was a possibility.
Okay, so what happened? Where does this end up? Where do we go with this company?
I don't get into the company.
Okay.
I auditioned for the company, and they're like, "Yeah, no, not really that interested." And I'm like, "Oh, I guess I gotta go back to LA."
But you go back,
but I go to Europe, and I tour around Europe around November, December is at time. At least it used to be. I don't know if it is anymore. A lot of companies were looking for dancers back then, and there's kind of like a great best kept secret is that you can retire with a pension as a dancer with companies in Europe.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
There you go. That's good to know. I think it's a little late, but maybe I'll give it a shot.
Yeah, you should give it a shot.
So in your mid now 20s to heading to your late 20s, you're a dancer touring Europe. How long did you do that for?
I just went to audition for companies. I went there for 2 weeks, end of November, beginning of that December. Went to wherever you went with a group of people and you ran into them at an audition. And if you didn't get hired with that company, they said, "Hey, listen, I think they might be hiring some people over at Frankfurt Ballet." You're like, "Okay, well, let's go there." So you jump on the train, you go to Frankfurt. You're like, "Oh, I think some people are looking for some dancers in Wiesbaden." You're like, "Great, now go down to Wiesbaden and audition for that company." Audition, all around Europe. And it brings me all back to this one company, Ballet du Nord in the north of France. And I go and audition there. And at the end of it, the director says, yeah, we have a space available if you would be interested. And I'm like, I'm moving to Europe.
Wow.
Starting my dance career. Fast forward a couple months later, I get a call in Toronto while I'm still at the school, finishing up the school. And it's a new, or their board members, and they said, "Hey, we just want to let you know that we got rid of our artistic director, and we know that he had done some hiring, and we're actually not going to be hiring people." So I went, "Oh, there we go.
Dreams
It's done.
dashed.
It's done. It's done. It's done.
Right.
I'm going to go back to LA.
Back to LA.
I'm going to go back to LA."
So what a fascinating experience to, I mean, you're on a very specific track to be a working dancer, to do that, and now you're heading back to LA with the idea of being an actor. Is that what that was the idea now? The dancing is just sort of a tool now, you're going to put that in the bag, and
yeah,
and you're going to be
and a friend said, "Hey, why don't you coming down to New York? Hey, we're here auditioning for Ballet British Columbia in Vancouver. You want to come on by?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah, sure. Why not? I'll go." I get a contract offer with Ballet British Columbia in Vancouver. So I'm not going to LA.
Okay.
Not second there. I moved to Vancouver, and I danced with the company for 3 seasons. 3 seasons.
Wow. All right, boy. I'll tell you, it's like I'm dealing with battling Floyd Mayweather. I can't quite catch the.
I know.
The
there's too much. There's probably too much story.
Just when I think you're going to weave right, you weave left. It's hard to it's hard to imagine. All right, so now what we're going to get into is, and what we're starting to see early on here is the variety of your career. I mean, you're the like I said, you're my age. You're another great example of, had I put the work in, who I could have been. You've been a theater performer. You've done guest spots on network television, network episodics, and HBO, and film roles, and you're a storyteller, doing your own one-man stuff. All of these things, in and of themselves, are these very different sort of branches of what we do. And you've touched on them all, and I want to get to how we got to them all. So you're now diverted from LA to Europe to New York to back to Toronto and dancing. You danced there. At what point does acting kind of finally grab hold of you and pull you out of the dance world, where it becomes your job, because of all these things you've done? Is the theater the thing that grabs you first? Is it Los Angeles and television that grabs you first? What is the acting thing that gets its hooks in you first?
Yeah, that's funny. You remember, and now you're reminding me that when I was at the National Ballet School, I remember hearing about this show called Kids in the Hall. And I was like, I have to find out where that's being shot. I have to be one of these guys. I didn't even know what the show was, but I just knew. I was like, something about it. Like, I tried to find out, like, how do I get out of this dance world thing and get into that? That's so crazy. I forgot about that. Because now that brings me to, now I'm with the company in Vancouver, and enjoying that creative process, that world of dance is it's 9 to 5.
Mm. Mm.
So it's a different world. You're working and creating and also remounting old pieces, and you're learning something that company members knew that they knew last year, but you're learning it for the first time.
And I would imagine physically demanding if it's that kind of a schedule.
Yeah, exhausting. Exhausting sounds like, oh, you're just tired all the time. No, just your body just hurts.
Yeah, it's
it just fucking hurts all the time. Just running the cold tub tap on your feet just in the morning, just ice cold, just get it colder. Okay, now ready to go.
Wow.
After a long day of rehearsal, sitting down, watching movie, credits roll, everyone else is getting out. You're like, no, can't get up yet. Just remember telling my girlfriend, just like, no, can we just sit here for a second? Yeah. Just the knees are gonna and straighten. Okay.
Is that part of what, aside from just the attractiveness of Kids in the Hall and the acting bug, is that part of what gets you out? Is how physically demanding it is? Is that you start starting to think, well, how long can I do this, or what?
Oh, that's a fair question. I
try to be fair.
I did try to. It is your show. I did try to. I do remember thinking like, oh, I wonder how long I can actually do this. Mm. I knew there was a limit to. I think some body types can take much more of the punishment. Mm. I never got the feeling that my body parts, not my Kevin Bacon body type could withstand years and years and years of this. I'm like, oh, I don't think, okay, this is going to be a short term, and then I will get back to the acting thing. Yeah.
When you're taking acting classes now, you're out of whatever the basic Stanislavski stuff they taught you in college. What kind of stuff are you studying, and where are you studying? Are you still in Toronto at this point when you're doing this stuff? Or?
No, I'm in Vancouver.
In Vancouver. Okay, so what kind of stuff are you learning early on as a young actor?
It's all just scene work, yes. but the scene work was no longer play scenes. It was always doing little film scenes or TV scenes. That's what I recall. Yeah.
All right. So now when does, like I said, let's weave back to that that moment where you're going to go for it as an actor. You're going to say, all right, let's try this.
A friend from Europe calls, a good friend from college. She's living in Paris. She says, hey, a friend of mine is working on a TV show in Vancouver, and she's French. She's a French actress, and they have a voice coach for her English, but she would like someone else to help her. She's like, would you be interested? And I'm like, absolutely. So she hired me, and I helped her. I just come from this 6-week intensive course of right. working on dialects and your bilabial fricatives and your Shakespeare texts.
Hey, no dirty words.
I know, sorry kids.
That's all right.
Hide the kids. And that got me. That I was like, oh, I could get a little buzz from that. I got to go to the set a couple times. And
what was the show? Do you remember what she was working?
The Highlander.
The Highlander. Oh yeah, okay. So you're on the set, and now it's gonna sink its teeth.
And now I'm watching it. I'm seeing it happen. I'm like, oh, this is how it all happens.
All right.
Oh, look at how many times they get to do it. And I'm like, oh, they made a mistake. Oh, they're laughing about it. Oh, they get to go back and do it. Oh, this is not like a play. Not that I didn't know that it was not like I had some idea, but when you see like the inner workings and like, who are all these people?
Right. It takes the reverence.
Who is this guy? Who is, or gal, right. And who's this one that's doing all the, makeup and your hair and like, oh, who are they? And who are all the other people sitting around with the books and the notes and so it became, that was curious. That was curious to me.
All right. So at what point do you dive in and do it? Do you get yourself out there and start doing this kind of stuff? And like I said, is it that world? Is it film and television, or do you get back to theater at some point? Because what we'll also get into too is not just the theater, but you had a stint as a Blue Man. With the Blue Man Group, which is a whole other sort of thing. So,
my God.
So your live performance part of your career fascinates me because of all the one-man stuff, the Blue Man, the one-man shows, all that stuff. But what is it first for you? What is it first as an actor that gets you working right off the bat? Are you doing TV commercials? Are you doing TV? Are you doing theater? What is it?
It's so infrequent that it was hard to ever feel like that I'm now in that world doing it. I mean, like one commercial.
Okay.
You know, you get an opportunity once, and I'm like, oh, that was kind of fun.
Right.
That was pretty fun. And then one little small part, you know, on a show. Again, at this point, I have an agent.
Okay, so let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
so you get representation fairly early before you're even kind of in the mix working. How did that process happen for you? Because a lot of actors don't see that or see that early.
They don't see it as a possibility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And how does that?
Yeah. You remember how representation and somebody getting you out there helped?
I want this to be helpful for your listeners too, because they're like, well, get to the point of where you got the how did you get the agent? I was like, it was just a lot of the old just submitting.
Right. Right. Well, it's honestly, yours is the lesson from earlier in your life where you didn't set these targets. You just kept doing it. If you just keep doing it and you just keep pumping away, things have a tendency to find you. You know what I mean? So there are other people who have these bullseyes and they're so focused on it. But your example is just keep going. Just pump it out there, and things kind of the opportunities find you.
And maybe keep moving.
Yeah.
I mean, like physically location. I don't know. I wouldn't poo-poo that for anyone who moves to say like New York or here in LA, and they're just like, man, I'm here and I'm going to stay here and I'm going to make it happen. I'd be like, that's great. That's not necessarily for me.
Okay.
I have to kind of follow.
Go where the work is.
I guess following your gut about it, but only following my gut if an opportunity came up. And I heard that there was going to be this remounting of Showboat that a company in Toronto was putting together. That production was going to make its way to Broadway and was going to set up Broadway. And I was like, that is how I get back to one of the big theater, film, television cities. Right. I'm an American citizen. Thank you, Canada. I've been up here for 4 years. That's enough. That's enough for me. Don't do Canada. Let me get back and get me set on track. So I go and audition for it. They're auditioning in Vancouver, and even though the show's going to be in Toronto, they're also auditioning in Vancouver. And I go to the audition, and they go, "Yeah, I'm not interested. Would you be interested in our production of Phantom of the Opera that's been on tour?" And I was like, "Oh, isn't that thing like 5 years old already?" Like it just seemed like old, like it seemed old. Right. And they go, "Well, there's one dance role in the show, and you'd be right for that." And I'm like, I don't know. I've been in this world of creative process, and I've left that musical theater world behind. So and then they say, "Well, it pays this much," and I'm like, "I'm in."
There you go. Paying job. That's what gets
paying
you.
Job. I was like, "Great, fantastic."
So you tour with Phantom. How long did you do that?
2 years.
2 years.
1 year on the tour, and then they had a permanent show in Toronto, and my role opened up at the show in Toronto. And again, thinking of Toronto, that's a television film town.
Sure.
Yeah. So then I moved back to Toronto.
John, I'm going to reach into the screen and I'm going to wrestle you to the ground at this point because I have tried to pull you with all my might out of the dance, and you keep pulling me back in. So let's get you.
I know. Let's do it. Let's get there.
For God's sake, be an actor for me, John. For God's sake.
Yeah. Let's start last week then. Okay.
So what eventually gets you? And again, where is it? Is it the theater? Is it film? What is it that gets you to be the actor that we all know? Oh my God.
My mind just leapt like three enormous chasms. I was like, "Oh."
Yeah, just yeah. We're compressing time.
Time for musical interlude. You just put in some.
Yeah.
We have a nice keyboard here.
Right.
You just put in some.
It'll be the Three Stooges.
Some old timey like bar music. have you edit that in. How do we get there?
I know you've done. I've seen it. I've seen the work, John.
Yeah, me too. I know. I'm pretty sure. How do we get there? Do we get there just by jumping straight to Blue Man?
Well, you know what? Let's go to
because my first television gig where I felt like I was an actor doing the thing. Well,
yes.
Other than the thing that happened in Toronto. We'll talk. No, when I worked on Due South, and
I remember that show.
Yeah, again they needed male singers for this sequence, where we all break into song. We're all these Mounties on a train, and we all break into song.
So let's go right to Blue Man, because Blue Man. When did you do that? What was your time period of that?
That would have been. I would have started. But I have to give you the. I have to give you the story.
I can't let you smoke anything before we do these shows. It's your brain.
Yeah. So I'm doing Phantom in Toronto.
Okay.
And I'm already thinking like, maybe it's time to start leaving this show and again go back the whole time I'm thinking, got to do the LA thing. It was always the LA thing. I'm like, in back of my mind, it's like, I've been up here now in Canada for 8 years. Time to do the LA thing. Let's get back there and go. So I arrived at the theater early. There's the Pantages Theater and the Winter Garden Theater, or the Elgin, whatever it's called, and they share the same alleyway. Walking up the alleyway, and the stage doors to the Winter Garden Theater are open, and there's a little handwritten sign on it that says Blue Man, and an arrow pointing upstairs. And I'm like, I got 15 minutes. I got 15 minutes before I need to be in wig in the costume. And I'm like, so I go upstairs, and they go, and there's a couple ladies there, and they go, "You here to audition?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure. What are we doing?" And then they just put me through a little, few auditions. They give me some things to do, some clowning, some drumming, and they go, "Great, thanks a lot." I'm like, "Great, see you later." Well, I get a call that they're like, "Hey, we want to bring you." It was like 5 of us, 2 guys from Montreal and 3 guys from Toronto, and they bring us to Boston. Blue Man had opened their show in New York, and then their second show they opened was in Boston. They said, "Hey, we want to bring you guys down. We're looking for some, and not replacements, but looking to expand our team of Blue Men." And so we did a bunch of workshops for a week, staying in Boston. From that, they hired 1 guy. They sent the other 3 packing, and they said, "You, me, come to New York. We want to work with you a little bit more." So I went to New York, worked with them for a week, learned a third of the show, performed like Bald and Blue, performed like a third of the show for them. And anyone that they could bring, they brought people from the box office, like the cleaning crew, anyone who was there during the day, they just come in and sit in the house with all the other Blue Men and the directors and the producers and the creators, and watch this guy and see if we're interested. And at the very end of it, they went, "Okay, man, so we about you'd be interested in sticking around for another week or so? I mean, we're seeing something there. We're just not quite sure." And I'm like, I honestly don't know what else to show you guys. I don't. I feel like I've shown you everything. And you know what? Actually, I just got noticed the other day that I found an agent in Los Angeles that would be interested in representing me. And they're like, "Oh man, all right, that's what you got to follow your heart, man. That's what you got to do. You totally got to do that." And I was like, "You're right. I don't want to put on your stupid blue makeup. Okay. I'm out of here." So I moved back to Los Angeles, and I'm like, "Dude, Los Angeles, I am back, and I am in it. Now I'm in it. Now I'm gonna be taking the classes. I'm gonna do the voiceover work. I'm gonna do the scene work. I'm gonna improv classes, and I'm gonna be going on these auditions, whether they're porn or not. I don't know what they're gonna. It doesn't work out at all.
You know, John, I don't believe anything. Every road we go down, I just don't trust where you're going to take me. I was all in on the Blue Man audition, and so let's back up on that because this is interesting from a craft perspective that I'd like to know.
Yeah.
Like that first one, they have you doing some, like you said, some clowning and some drumming. That very first walk-in audition. But now when you're workshopping with these guys, this is like an audience interactive piece mainly, right? Blue Man. It's really
there's elements of that.
There's performance, sure. And then it's so. What are they having you do? What are you doing? And
Yeah.
what is it that they're looking for that you're not doing? Like, what's the craft of the? First of all, if people don't know this by now, what rock you've been under, I don't know. But you explain the Blue Man Group. What it is,
Show
just
about
briefly.
yeah, it's about show about three very curious characters, whether they are human or alien-like. We never really describe it as that,
Right.
but I think that's the perception of it for sure. And there's a lot of music involved and technology
And there's no,
common.
they don't talk,
Don't talk. There's a lot communicated, but
but they don't
there's
talk.
no
Right.
talk. Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
And it's almost, it's not mime, or it's almost like you remember Moominchance used to be back in the day with
sure. Yeah,
it's that
of
kind of
course.
performance thing. So as
Yeah.
an actor, what are they looking what are they having you do, and what are they looking for?
A lot of silent clowning.
And had you ever done anything like that? Had you ever done like mime, or were you trained to do?
No, because it's not really mime work. We're not pretending that we have a thing. It's always you always are. It's very tactile. You're always doing the thing that is actually you're always there doing the actual thing that is happening.
Okay. And are you creating?
They may create the circumstance for you, and they're
Okay.
always those are some games that they would play where there's a it's the there's a word for it, but I'll just say like the leader clown, the guy who he says like there's one game that you play called Birth of a Clown. So you leave the room and you come in, and you walk into the room, and you're not able to say anything, and maybe the person says, "Oh, so you're here for the beauty pageant? Oh, fantastic! We can't wait. We've heard a lot about your special talents. Can't wait to see them. Why don't you go ahead? Feel free to show us your talent. We can't wait to see it."
Okay. And
then you're just pulling something out of your ass.
And had you
And
had you taken sort of improv stuff before? Had you like were you?
a little bit. I do, yeah, a few classes, but those are mostly just like exercises of,
So what kind of stuff?
ooh ha cha hoo ha.
So how long would these sessions go where you're working with these people and just trying to pull stuff out of your ass like this?
Exhaustingly hours.
Wow.
Yeah, mostly just breaking a lot of breaking you down.
And are they critiquing sort of like, well, you could do this, you could try this, what you did with that roll of toilet paper, you could do differently,
Yeah.
with,
Not even that, just more like to your face. Like like when you're pulling that thing out of your ass, they go, that's your trick? Okay. Sorry, I guess we made a mistake. Sorry. Thanks for coming in. Thanks.
Wow.
See you later. You can go now. Yeah, no.
Wow.
It's cruel. And then you try something, and then you try to pull something else out. And they're like, oh, so you're being cute with us? Don't be cute.
Wow. Wow.
Thank you.
Sadistic blue men. This is insane.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's worse than ballet.
It really was. And I was like, oh, tell me I'm bad again, please.
So you don't get into or the blue men call your bluff, is what they did. They call your bluff and they say, no, follow your heart, man. Go to LA. So you go back to LA.
Yeah.
I'm assuming, and you say that didn't go well. So where does that leave us? Where are we at now?
That I called them out of desperation. I was like, in 1 week, dropped by an agent, unable to find any part-time I mean, I'd done plenty of waiting jobs in my life, and I couldn't find one to save my life in Los Angeles. Not one. The car I bought was an absolute lemon. The only place I could find a place to rent was this renovated crack house in the West Village.
But it was renovated, which is good. Wasn't it?
After the earthquake, they just put a slop of paint over all the cracks. It was after the big earthquake there. There was like three people living there.
A crack house, like it had a crack in it.
Yes, it was. And actually, there were crack addicts that were living there before. Yeah. So it was about almost a year to the date, and I called the guys. I was like, they're like, hey man, what's going on? I'm like, hey, what's going on with you guys? How's things with the show in New York? They're like, great. How's things in LA? I'm like, oh, it's going fine. And they said that these are the producers, and they said, actually the guys are out in LA right now, and they're shooting a commercial. So I went and met with them, and they said, hey, do you want to come do some more workshopping with us in our hotel room? I was like, sure.
Sure,
So
I'm
I went
sorry
there
for some more pain.
Yeah. Went there, and after we were just on the floor by the end of it, just like laughing, cracking up at each other, the little bits that we were coming up with, and they were like, "Okay, man, okay, yeah, you're in."
That takes you back to New York, and now you're doing Blue Man. All right, so
Yep.
let's talk a little bit about the craft of this.
Yeah.
It's like I said, it's silent. It's not mine, but it's very physical. It's and it's audience interactive, and you have bits. You have structured bits, but there's also a lot of element of improvisation. It's collaborative. You got to know what the other guy is doing. You all know each other. Talk about working with those guys. What's that like as an actor? What is that day like when you coming in for? First of all, what's the rehearsal process like for something that is so sort of open-ended like that?
Well, since there definitely is a script to it that's structured, and having come from a long-running show, having done Phantom of the Opera, 8 shows a week, I understood like what the grind was going to be. It was no longer the 9 to 5 creative ballet world,
right,
as I experienced. I mean, with Phantom, it was my day is free and you just do the show at night.
Okay.
And the show is you're going to stand exactly where the last 5 guys before you stood. You're like, why? That's just the way Hal did it. That's just the way it's put together.
Right.
So that felt very uncreative. So the idea of joining Blue Man at the time, I was like, oh, I hope this is going to be satisfying and creative. And it turned out to be exactly what I had always wanted. I mean, just playing music every night, waking up and walking to my theater. I'm going to go perform in my theater in New York City as an actor, and an actor that I get to also kind of hide during the day. No one kind of knows what I do. Your neighbors know what you do because you have little bits of blue still on underneath your nose and underneath your eyes and around your ears. And I loved it. I loved the anonymity of it, but I also loved the there was definitely a creative process whenever we'd work on maybe a new piece of music, or you'd work on a bit. We'd do workshops,
right.
And that was all very satisfying. Now I felt like I was on track.
So what what are some? You say it's scripted.
Yeah.
So you go into a night. Are there different shows, or do you guys put together like a show for a couple of weeks, or what's a season like?
No, it's definitely a show that has evolved over the years, but it's definitely a set show. I mean, like these are the music pieces you'll play. These are the bits with the audience that'll happen.
Right.
And there's a little bit of flexibility as to how that audience member might respond. But after you've done it a majillion times, you're like, you pretty much know how it's going to go.
So let's
but then you have to wrestle with keeping that fresh.
Let me talk about, you said the musical bits you have to do. You said there was drumming. What are the skills? Did you have to learn skills for this, or did you come in with this stuff, or what?
Yeah, you had to learn some basically just accented 16th notes.
Okay.
As far as drumming. So it's not like playing a kit, a jazz drum or something like that. So it's not, again, anyone with a little bit of drive,
right,
a little bit of musicality. I think it's not an impossible show to learn.
And are the guys that are in there teaching you this, or are you coming in with your own?
Yeah, there are other Blue Men and the creators who you're workshopping with and learning it day in, day out. They always say they want to take their time. They're like, we always rush when we put a new guy in, but with you, we're going to take our time, and we're just going to, maybe it'll be over. I think they were thinking it was going to be over 6 weeks, like a 6-week period, rehearsing, 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, hours in the morning, hours in the afternoon, hours in the evening. And,
wow.
and come and watch the show. You can watch the show as much as you want. I would watch it almost every night. I loved it. Loved watching it. I was like, I can't wait to get up there and do it. But again, we're going to take our time. Someone got injured, and then the emergency, Oh God, no, John, you have to go on tonight.
Wow.
Yeah, and you're gonna do it, and you're gonna have your first show, and it's gonna be with Chris Wink, the original creator of the show, who
Wow.
they had been trying to move away from doing the show just to produce the company,
Sure.
but Chris is like, no, I don't want him to go up there and do it alone. I want to be up there with him. So we ended up doing the show together.
All right. So
And that was
what is
fantastic.
that experience? You get that call. It's curtain. You got your blue makeup on and your black outfit on or
Yeah,
whatever. What does
yeah,
that feel like?
it was it was emotionally exhausting. Just remember with a show that was, when you're not performing a thing out at people,
Hmm. Right.
if you're if it you start to find there's a space where the show happens between you and the audience. Like what I started to notice was when you're working non-verbally, it creates this it's kind of like a little biofeedback loop
Mm.
of event and experience and experience and event, and it keeps like you're changing places with, at least for me, I'm changing places with the audience's perception. Like where is the show? I mean, are they the show or am I the show? Obviously they're there for the show, but I'm feeling like I'm watching them. I'm trying to get, because we have no fourth wall.
Right.
We're constantly basing our performance on their experience,
Right.
how they're experiencing it. Not just like, oh, good, they liked it,
No.
but like what they're seeing and what they're asking, and then also what they're probably unconscious, on an unconscious level to them, what they're letting in, what they're opening up and making themselves available
Right.
to you to see,
Right.
or to smell or to hear, or whatever, all of that.
That's got to be such a. I mean, for most of us who've performed in any way on stage or in camera, we don't get that experience, where the truth of the moment is not you and another performer, it's you and the actual audience is part of.
Yeah.
What is that?
It becomes this. Yeah, you're right. It's like a little, definitely a triangle,
Right.
for sure, between the stuff that you're doing, the little bits that you're doing, even if it's a gag, and they're going to laugh at this certain point, but when they get it, and you get that they're getting it, and they get that you are getting that, or you're questioning them as to why they're getting it. It's such a, the show is pretty, at least the show back then, the show was pretty flawless. Like it worked.
Right.
Like it just worked so well.
What a thrill! What a thrill for that! Not every performer gets to have that very specific experience.
Yeah, yeah.
So all right. So I don't want to. I got a little time with you left. I want to touch on a lot of other stuff that you did, but from Blue Man, because you've also done plenty of stuff on television and film and stuff where, where you've gotten to do real cool guest spots, guest villains, that kind of stuff that people would recognize you in. But you're also a writer, and you perform your own one-man shows, and you also perform in the Moth storytelling series, which I've seen a couple of those.
Yeah.
Where did these things happen? If you can put, are they all concurrent, the film and television with the one-man?
A little bit, yeah. Opportunity came up that I met this fantastic actor, Giancarlo Esposito. We met one afternoon in Connecticut while I was at Blue Man, and he said, "Oh, do you know so and so casting person?" And I was like, "Oh no." He's like, "Oh, you should send her your stuff." And so I sent her stuff, and she's like, "Hey, would you be interested in coming reading for this thing on for Sex in the City?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." Well, I booked the job, and that's my first TV gig. Oh, it was so terrifying. It was terrifying. The whole thing was terrifying.
What was your bit? What was your thing? What did you have to do?
That episode, Miranda has given up sex for the episode. So she goes on this chocolate bender to end all benders. And I'm the clerk that she keeps coming up to in the Piard Pastisserie on the Upper East Side.
Right.
And she'd like order one eclair and then two eclairs. And then like one day she's just like, give me an entire cake. And then she's embarrassed. And I'm like, oh, who's that? I go, who's this for? It's like, oh, it's for my boyfriend. It's
right.
It's his birthday.
That's a fun bit. So Miranda wasn't.
Yeah, super fun.
Miranda wasn't Kim Cattrall. It was
Cynthia Nixon.
Cynthia Nixon. Oh, that's cool. That's fun. So terrifying but fun, right? I mean,
super terrifying, super just major, just failing left and right, trying to just bumbling lines and be like, oh, it's okay, John. We'll take it again. Just take it again. I was like, okay, because they changed the lines the night before. You're like, oh God. Wow. A lot of actors' nightmare. Wow. Actors' nightmare going on at that moment.
Wow. So but eventually this leads to some other work because now you're in the casting people's circle. Now you've done the bit. Is this how it works for you?
You would think, yeah.
you would.
No, but it doesn't. No, it's a lot. For some, maybe it does work out that way.
Right.
It's never. It's always just been piecemeal, thing here, thing there. I mean, when I look back on them, they all seem very connected.
Right.
But no.
All right. So during this serpentine struggle that all of us actors have, when do you become this writer? When do you decide I can tell my own stories and start to do that kind of thing? Does that happen along this way as well?
Yeah, just spending days and every mornings in the dog park with my dog, and you just see a thing that happened on the way to the dog run. And they're like, what? And I'm like, well, this guy was just doing this thing and this thing happened, and you finish telling the story and someone goes, oh man, that's a good story. And I'm like, oh, it is? And I start really thinking, I'm like, what makes a good story? Like, so I would retell, of course, because the experience happened and it was so crazy and wild and very unique to being in New York, and I would share it with other people, and I would find myself revising it and retelling it and crafting it. And I was like, oh, that's the part they really like. Oh, that's, and then at the same time, simultaneously, another friend was like, oh, you should come tell stories at the Moth. I was like, oh, what's that? Well, you get up and you just, tell a story based on the theme.
Explain that for folks who don't know what that is. What is the Moth?
The Moth is a storytelling organization. They have these slams, like poetry slams. Right. Well, they'll have a theme for the night, and the theme will be put out like a week or two beforehand. So if you have a story based on, heartbreak, you would get up and you have 5 minutes to tell your story, your true story, without any notes. Just something maybe something you would tell like at a party,
right?
Maybe, and then maybe you craft a little bit more because it gets a little. It's not like telling it at a party where people are surrounding you. You're got a microphone in front of you, and then there's a little bit of space, and the audience is staring at you, and they're sort of judging you in the dark, and so it doesn't quite feel like you're telling that story as naturally as you would before. So, for me, it was the struggle, not struggle, but the challenge, and the goal was like, oh, let me get it back to how close can I get it to telling that first time that story happened. That experience.
So
happened.
you did a was it an off-Broadway production of the Spalding Gray thing? Now Spalding Gray was, I don't know much about him, but he was the classic, monologuist, one-man showist,
I watched Swimming to Cambodia a dozen times while I was training at the National Ballet School, and it turns out he's performing in Toronto. I'm like, oh, I gotta go see him. I buy a ticket, sit down, watch him perform. It's fantastic. At the end of the show, they're just guiding everyone straight out one exit and out into the parking lot. And I was like, oh, okay, everyone has to go this one exit. And again, deep snow. I'm gonna have to walk home in the snow. So freezing cold, February in Toronto, ice everywhere. But I'm like, I gotta go pee before I go. And so I go back. I'll just use the bathroom in the lobby. So I walk around to the front of the theater and I walk in. And I've walked into, it's a private reception for Spalding. And he's sitting behind his table, and there's a line of people, and they're all signing his book.
Right.
And the only thing I have on me is I started keeping a little tiny journal when I moved to Canada, because I'm gonna have some interesting experiences up here, I think, that I should write about. This is, again, before I'm not thinking stories at all, but I'm just like, my observations of living in another country, for the first time. And I'm doing this thing, writing, I want to write about it and understand it someday, And so I go up to him and I hand him my journal. Everyone's been handing him his book for him to sign. He takes it and he goes, what's this? And I go, oh, it's just my journal. I'm just writing my thoughts and stuff. And he goes, huh. He signs it. And he goes, what do you do? I go, well, I'm training at this school, I think, to be a ballet dancer. I don't know if it's what I really want to do, but it's what I want to do right now. I said, how do you write a one-man show. And he just stops and he says, well, it's a bit of a red herring. You have an idea and you think you know exactly where the story's going. And when you get there, it's absolutely wrong. And you don't realize that until you're there. But that's okay, because the journey to getting to that story was the important part. Now go back and start again and see where that takes you. If it's another red herring, it's okay. It was the journey to get to that point. Come back out and go back down again, that path again. When I went and auditioned for the show, they were looking for an understudy in New York years later. Spalding was a friend of the creators of Blue Band Group. His girlfriend at the time, she lived with a couple of the Blue Men. They were just living in the same space together. They were all packed in one tiny little room together, just saving money. They were trying to create this show, Blue Man. So became friends with him. These are those equity calls in New York, up at the equity office, where the show has been cast. It's already been cast, but because the Actors Equity has this agreement that you have to audition people, and they're like, we don't want to. We're like, then send your assistant's assistant, but you have to see actors. It's great, but it's really dumb. So anyway, Spalding's wife was there, and so I brought my little journal with me, and I said, we've met before briefly. It was at a party once at Blue Man. She goes, "You're a Blue Man?" I said, "Yeah." And she said, So you know Chris, Matt, and Phil? I said, "Yeah." And she said, and I met Spalding when I was living in Toronto, and I showed her the journal that he had signed, and it had leaked through one of the pages, and then he flipped through 3 of the pages and then circled it on the other side, made a little piece of art out of it. And then I performed one of the monologues, and she was like, you're great. We love you. I'm going to tell them all about you," and end up getting hired to do the show as the understudy, and went on when one of the guys had left the show for like a month to go do something else, and I ended up sitting behind Spalding's desk and actually being Spalding.
That's amazing. Just follow wherever it goes.
Follow
wherever it goes. Red herring or not, it'll take you where you gotta go. That's awesome, man. Well, I'm glad you gave me that story, because now that's going in.
Okay, good.
So I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
That is fantastic. It's a perfect metaphor for our conversation today, and how it went, and just filled with stuff, little gems.
Damn it! I knew we'd get there.
We got there. Did you do that show before you were doing your one-man shows?
Yeah.
Okay, so was that did that give you the impetus to kind of I can do what he did, I can do that sort of a deal? Okay.
I see now how I see how.
So what is it that you learned doing that? Because the show, the Spalding Gray show you did, I think he obviously was dead by then, but right. Everybody's doing his bits. Yeah,
doing his. Some of them were. Most of it was work from his journals that had never been performed before. Right. But a few of them were classic ones that people knew, and it was sort of. And the great director and producer of that show, they wanted to put together a story of his life through his stories, right. Just one sort of through line. What was the name of the piece again? What was the name of that show? Yeah. Spalding Gray, Stories Left to Tell. Left to Tell. Got it. Yeah. Right. So in doing that, in getting into that, it helps inspire you to be this one-man show sort of storyteller. What is it about that did that? What said, I can do this. I can put this up. After I had been telling stories at the Moth, a friend of mine, because a couple of them were similar in theme. They're sort of like my misadventures with my dog. Right. No time. And I thought, I wonder if there's a way to put these stories together like Spalding did, and make, if there's a through line to the very end of our our time together, the time we spent together.
Right.
And so I gave it a try. And when I was in Los Angeles, so it takes me out of New York, and now I'm out in LA here.
Not a shock.
Yeah, not a shock at all.
The
time travel.
The passport itself is just.
Yeah, exactly. And then a friend told me about. She said, "That's a great show." She's like, "You should do the Fringe Theater Circuit Festival." I was like, "What's that?" She was like, "Well, there's all these Fringe festivals." And then I remembered I had seen some. I went to one once when I was up in Canada. Two friends of mine that had a clown show that I had seen, and I just thought they were hysterical and brilliant and amazing. And I thought, oh, maybe this will get me closer. This will be something to do during the downtime, because most of them are during the summer months. Right. And if there's nothing going on in LA, then why not?
So, all right, this is some stuff I want to talk about here, is the craft of this, because you're telling personal stories. And I got to watch a little bit of some of the excerpts you have on your website, which will tell everybody where they can look at that stuff. But so you're telling personal stories, but you're scripting it, right? Is it written? Are you writing it down? It's not just extemporaneous. This is the part where we talk about this, because there are cues. There are, lighting cues.
Lighting cues, sound cues. Exactly.
So you're writing it out as a script, and then memorizing it as you would a script.
Yes, exactly.
Interesting.
For me, it was. I have. There are some people that I know along the Fringe circuit tour that are solo performers, right. And there are a few of them that are just like, they just wing it. They get up there, they know what their show is, ish, but they just kind of just do it. And for them, it kind of it changes. But for me, I'm like, oh no, it's got to be the same.
Once again, that structure.
For me, mine's more like a play.
Yes,
it's going to be more like a play.
Okay, and that goes back to, because you need that sort of structure, that framework to stand on.
It definitely works for me. Yeah, that's what works for me.
So when you're doing it, does some of the fourth wall that you lost, that you got rid of for Blue Man, does that happen? Do you interact?
Yeah, that's exactly. I don't necessarily interact, but I'm definitely sharing all of that directly with the audience.
Okay.
And there a fourth wall will go up if I'm then in conversation with someone sometimes.
Okay, so in conversation with an imaginary character.
So it would just like whoop, it'll just appear, and then whoop, it'll disappear again, and I'm talking with the audience again. Yeah.
And how many of these shows do you have?
I've written 3 and performed in 2 or 3.
Wow,
they're 3-hour-long shows.
That's very cool. So what was the first one? Was the first one the dog?
Yeah.
One?
Yep.
So what was the first? Where was that, and when did you do that? Wow. Where did you get to do it?
Let's say that. Oh, okay. The first would have been the Orlando Fringe Festival. And then
what kind of house did you walk into? Like,
okay, yeah. So the Fringe, the way that works is, you submit, or you enter, and it's just a lottery how they draw who they're going to be the performers.
Right.
And the venue, you have no idea what your venue is going to be until you get there. You'll know. Like a month before, they let you know you're going to be in this space, and you're going to have 3 lights, or you might have the nice theater space, and you're going to have a lot of lights and good sound. So you just never know. Right. So you're constantly having to reshape it every city you go to.
Right.
If you're lucky enough to get in on enough cities.
Now, as an actor, again, it's personal, but are you performing a character? Or, I mean, like Werner Herzog, as a documentary, would call it the ecstatic truth. It's kind of truth a little enhanced, or is it just what you see is what you get? How are you approaching it as an actual actor? Even
that's a fair question.
I try to be fair.
Try to be fair. It's time for another musical interview. Definitely, the goal is always to get back to when I've told that story of that thing that happened while me and Abby, my dog, were out on this thing, or just an experience that happened and she was around at that time. A little bit what you said about Werner Herzog.
Yeah, you're adding a little pizzazz to it.
A little bit, but also because the show Little Pussy, I do remember some response from people that are like, "Wow, you got picked on a lot as a kid," and I'm like, "Oh, I should be not careful of that, but just be aware of when you're stacking a bunch of stories together, it's really impactful, and you're like, there's lots of space where in that time in your life that nothing was happening, so it doesn't seem all that hugely dramatic, but when it's all compressed like that, it can seem you have to one eye would have to be cognizant of that. I mean, oh God, I remember when I finally got to do Dog Years, that was the dog show, in Vancouver, and I got a proper theater, like all kinds of lighting, and there was a backdrop that opened up, and I remember the lighting designer was like, he's like, "Oh, do you want some lights on the back?" I was like, "What do you mean?" He goes, and he opened up the scrim, and there's like this beautiful white scrim, and I go, "Oh, that would be that's nice." And it'll be nice is if at the very end, last moment, why don't you just keep some lights up on behind me, and then just fade the light out on me, but then you just see the silhouette of me on stage. That would be. Oh, I think that'll be nice. That'll be really that'll be nice and poignant. It destroyed the audience watching the show. I mean, because it's sad. Obviously, you can imagine. That was be the end of our time together, the end of her life. I mean, people are like, "Oh, it's a very moving story," but with that lighting, oh my God, it was like driving a Panzer tank over school children holding flowers out to offer it. And just watching them just like crush.
So maybe a little too much zazz on that one.
It's a little bit too, but it was so, amazing. Just the power of learn about the subtlety of lighting, the power of lighting, or even using music. It can really, it's really powerful, and you can just a dash.
And what do you think about that? Just as a human being, as an actor, when you're performing a role and you connect to the truthful parts of yourself that are in that character, and then the audience resonates with it and all that stuff, and there's this certain thing you get. But now it's you.
Yeah, I love it.
You're the character, and this is your truth. Yeah. And what does that feel like?
I love it. Can't get enough of it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Are you working on any new ones, or you?
There's always one. Yeah, there's one that's brewing. And and if it starts to really show itself, then I'll start to write it down. I kind of don't set out to do a show. I just wait until things start speaking to me, or if someone else speaks to me. If I just tell a thing and someone goes, "Oh, that's a good story," I'm like, "Oh, duly noted."
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I just got a couple minutes before we wrap it up, so I just want to throw in just a couple more things. We'll just kind of rapid fire rattle them off, because during all this, while you're performing this one-man show and you've come from the theater, you're starting to do television and stuff, and like I said, you've done a lot of guest spots and some stuff in feature films. Just resume stuff. What are some of the shows that we may have seen? There's some of the network episodic type stuff where you were, it was like CSI type stuff. Or,
well, this last season was Perry Mason.
Oh, that was great. The HBO one. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Holy shit, that's right. Yes.
Yeah.
Good show.
Yeah.
Nice
that was good. That was a good day. That was a good day of work. And it's not always that fun. Sometimes it's fun.
Where did they shoot that one? Where did they shoot that Perry Mason?
We shot that episode. My scene was in South Pass.
Okay. All right, cool. All right, so Perry Mason.
Yeah. And what before that? What are some other things?
I saw you as
there was Criminal Minds, but that was years ago. Yep. Again, that was all that's all kind of fun and it's crazy making, because those shows just like move really quick, and as an actor, you're like you have very little time.
Yeah.
I wish I had more day on all of these shows. I wish I had more days on all these shows, because it always feels like you're arriving that first day of junior high school.
Right.
And you're just trying to figure out who everyone, what everything is, and it's just moving so quick.
Yours is a guest spot, or it's a guest criminal, or it's a guest whatever. Yeah. It's and everybody else has got their shtick, Like
they got their thing.
like
They
the-
got their thing, and you're just trying to figure it out. They're like, John, this is your hut that you hide out in the forest. Okay, ready, go. You're like, what? Okay, well, that's not where I would reach for a thing. Let me. You just want? Can you just have 3 minutes to like sit in the space? I think you as an actor you should really demand that more. Like just taking charge of your space if you can without getting in people's way. But yeah, those definitely those shows they move like crazy, and you kind of want to. You want to get out of the way, but you also want to you want to take your time and take your place, and that's hard. It's so hard. It's so hard. It's so hard to feel it out.
So what's happening in your career right now? Where like what are the things that are on the horizon? Zero. Well, that's all of us right now. There's nothing going on. But I mean,
nothing going on.
What would you like to be? You want to do more of the that one man show stuff, or like where do you? I mean, I hesitate to ask you where you want to go because it'll take a left turn if I do that. But
it will. I know. I'm very cognizant of that right now too.
Where would you like to go? What do you want to do?
If I do another one man show, the fringe circuit is also kind of hard to it's a lot of work to just break even.
Yeah.
If you made a little bit of money, a little more money, then it would feel like it was worth it. But it's hard when you're breaking even to feel like it's actually worth it. And where do you want to present these things? I mean, the creative person in me will always find a way to perform it someplace somehow.
Right.
For sure. And as far as film and TV, there just needs to be more of it before I can decide whether or not I really like it.
Well, the landscape is different now too from, when you started, when we all started. It's, there's just so many Hulu and Netflix and Amazon, and everybody's got an original programming wing of whatever they're doing. So there's got to be more outlets to at least get work. Am I wrong?
You're right. There's a lot of work out there.
Okay.
I don't know who's getting it. No, I read for plenty of them. But for me, it's more just, I want to just feel like I want to feel like I'm with the ballet company. I want to feel like I'm with the ensemble of Blue Man. I want to feel like we are together making a thing happen on more than just a one afternoon, a one long day shoot.
Right.
Well, so far that's not all that satisfying. Sometimes it is, but a lot of times it leaves you very like,
Well, John, I would say then if that collaborative thing is what turns you on and what I think will eventually pull you into that place where the sentence has a finish to it, is, I think we all have to pull together and find those of common mind and start to create, that
your people.
work. Yeah, get the circle of the people, you and the Kates and the great writers and all the people we know, and start to do these things together.
I agree.
And find our own venue. There's enough way with the technology now for artists to do that, to be collaborative in this way that didn't exist before. I think we can do that.
Yeah, I agree.
So last little thing. First of all, before I get to that, where can people find you? What's the website they can find you at?
That is thejohngrady.com.
The John Grady? Is that what it was?
Yeah, it is. Yes, the John Grady. Yeah.
Okay. And are you on the social media and all that stuff too? Or
yeah, they can find me. Same thing. The John Grady on Instagram.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And for the artist who's are starting out or midway through or struggling as we all are, what advice, what lesson would you pass on?
If they're still with us now, if they're still tuned in,
yes.
You're like, Jesus, this guy's been all over the map. Just know that's a possibility too. That to allow yourself to go out there and experience life in that way. That maybe you don't need to hunker down and hold on that death grip on staying in that city there. A lot of creative work is happening everywhere. and you get out there and find it.
Right. Excellent, John. Thank you so much for giving me this much time. And
Oh my God, thank you, Russ.
Super entertaining, super fun. It was really, really a trip. And like I said, you are what a career example for the working actor. You've gotten to do so much of so many different kinds of things. I am envious, and I'm sure there's so many artists out there who are envious of that kind of breadth of stuff that you got to do. And all the best, forward.
My pleasure. My pleasure.